Tractate Sanhedrin, page 7. We'll start in the page 6b, 17 lines from the bottom of the page. Today is going to be a kind of agadata, meaning a lot of learning and stories that involve with a kind of midrashic way. I would like to post the first central subject, which is the Jewish belief in the afterlife, the Jewish belief of what happened when a person is no longer among the living. And obviously Jewish tradition repleted with the idea that there is a heavenly tribunal, and they're basically going to rewind the life of a person, show the soul the past happening, and then they're going to ask questions. So either the first or one of the first questions, they're going to speak about a person dedicate his lifetime to study Torah, and we're going to learn today from both, from the text and from the commentary Tosfot, the importance of scheduling each and every day a time to study Torah, because one of the reasons is because in the afterlife we believe that the way that the heavenly judgment involved with the dedication, particularly a daily dedication to studies. The key subject, as we discussed in the past several days, is the court system. And we explained in the past several days the difference between mediation and judgment. And we learn different avenues of different sages. One hold that we should strive to solely and only mediate between the parties, instead of going to a whole tiring court system and reaching the final verdict with a hard feeling much longer. Others will hold that the moment the judge makes his mind, then he is in a way even forbidden to go for mediation, and the point in between. So where exactly is the din, is the judgment, or the pshara, the mediation, is the core part of the first session of today. We're also going to speak about the value of judge. Since we talked yesterday and the day before yesterday, the ordination and the need for someone to be qualified to be a rabbinic judge in the decorum of basic three sages of rabbinic court, the Bedin. The next question is, how about intimidation, meaning how the judge should approach people who threaten him. And again, it's a discussion because in a way we understand that the judge can always quit in the secular court. In Jewish court obviously it's different. The judge can announce that he doesn't want to hold the case before the first session. However, if he's already started the session, he cannot walk out and said, I just, because I'm afraid of one of the litigants, I don't want to hold the case anymore. I'm going to use several examples. I'm just using an introduction example, but obviously there are more. It was a well-known story about the 18th century, the Ben Ish Chai. It was a rabbi that lived in Baghdad in Iraq, the head Sephardic rabbi of that community, that he was also the head of the rabbinic court. And unfortunately, in one of the cases he was involved, it was a wealthy person that threatened him, especially after he ruled against him, that he said to Ben Ish Chai that he's going to break all of his home's windows. And the Ben Ish Chai responded and he said to him, be my guest, you know. So the fellow was afraid that he's going to excommunicate him or pay him back. And the Ben Ish Chai said, no, I'm going to pay an expert contractor to refurbish and fix all my windows if you're going to do it. So the fellow understand that he will not intimidate him and he will not threaten him. So he backed out and he apologized. Several weeks later, it was just before the high holidays, it was before the festival of Sukkot, and he came back to Ben Ish Chai and he asked him about etrog. As you know, we have the 4 species. One of them is the etrog that we carry during the festival of Sukkot. So he brought him those extremely expensive etrog, and he asked him what do you think about it. So the Ben Ish Chai said to him, I really don't understand you. We have a tiring court sessions, and you are so unbelievably mean to me and to the other party. Well, the whole court session was less than the value of this etrog. So in your sick mindset, it's more important to buy a fancy etrog in a narcissistic way so that you can show up everyone else how fancy etrog you have, while when it's come to a litigant in the court, you really don't care, and you can be happy with seeing that I rule in favor of the other party. It doesn't make any sense, but it brings us the mindset of the whole Jewish approach to a court system. And as we said, we start on page 6b, 17 lines from the bottom of the page. רבי שמעון בן מנסיה אומר, שניים שבאו לפניך לדין עד שלא תשמע דבריהם, או מי שתשמע דבריהם ואין אתה יודע להיכן הדין נוטה, אתה רשאי לומר להם צאו ביצעו, מי שתשמע דבריהם ואתה יודע להיכן הדין נוטה, אתה רשאי לומר צאו ביצעו, שנאמר פותר מים ראשית מדון ולפני התגלה הריב נטוש. So in short what he said is you have two litigants and they come before the judgment. So it's all depend upon what stage you are. If it was before the court session, you can strive and be very persuasive to convince the parties to mediate and have somehow a quick resolution before going to the whole court system. But then when you hear each party and you're already deep in the heart of heart, you know already what's the ruling should be, then you're not allowed to approach them and ask them to do mediation, because in a way King Solomon said in the book of Proverbs, a strong line, the beginning of strife, that's the sentence, the translation, the beginning of strife is as when one release water. Therefore, leave off contention before the quarrel breaks out. So his interpretation, he says, קודם שנתגלה הריב אתה רשאי לנוטשו, משנתגלה הריב אתה רשאי לנוטשו. If it was before the contention, meaning before the contention is revealed, so you can strive for mediation. But when it's, you know, the whole things and it was a strife and contention and quarrel, then it's too late to go for mediation. You have to pursue, and it's past, and it is what it is. So Aruch Laner elaborates and says, Milkatchila, the way we strive, the way it should be, poter maim reshit madon. So try to find mediation and they have peace between them. When it's already there and you hear everything. Now the truth is, the Malbim, Rab Meir Leibush, he hold the other way around. But anyway, we just go by the pshat. They said in the Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, destroy because ma'amidim divreim al divrei Torah, which is they always pursue just the judgment without trying to have peace and mediation. So in general, the way that the Judaism approach is we try to have peace between people, because it is true that you can rule and have a verdict in one party and one party is right, the other party is wrong. But sometimes too wrong doesn't make it right, meaning sometimes it's better to go for mediation, because the bitterness and anger and the bigotry that involve after one party lost, it's not always worth it. So they said on behalf of the grandson of the Sma, he hold that when Jethro, Yitro, the father-in-law of Moses, when he advised his son-in-law to no longer involve with micromanagement or micro judgment and let appointed a different judges for different segment in the tribunal act of the Jewish people while they're traveling from the land of Egypt to the promised land. So for example, he said Sarei Alafim, appointed the leaders for the 1,000, for the hundreds, for the 10th, meaning for each group should have kind of court system. So he goes and he explains, as we all know, Moses was the highest prophet of the prophets, as the Torah said, as the Maimonides said. So in a way, he doesn't need to have prognostications. He already knows before they even start the session who is right, who is wrong. Versus if you appointed lower judges, they just need to hear every party, they need to have all these sessions, the whole discussions, and then they have to have the ruling. So he said, based on our study here, it makes more sense that this advice was very wise of Jethro. Why? Because if it's not Moses, if it's a regular, average, good, expert judge, and he needs to hear each party and needs to go to the whole process, then he should strive for mediation. If it's early stage, if it's already late, he cannot strive for mediation. But it will not be right for Moses himself, since he knows already who is right and who is wrong, to approach mediation. Anyway, the Reish Lakish. The next one is the Reish Lakish is a disputation if it's really Reish Lakish. Some said it was Rabbi Yoshua ben Lakish, other hold it was Rabbi Yehuda ben Lakish, and he says as follows: Shnayim שבאו לדין, אחד רך ואחד קשה. Obviously, when you're dealing with the judgment, you have one person that is a rigid, difficult, obnoxious, and sometimes you have the other party who is a flexible, nice person. So you need to deal with these two parties, which sometimes impose upon the judges a tremendous amount of energy and time. And in a way, the judges sometimes are sick and tired and doesn't want to deal with this case. עד שלא תשמע דבריהם, או מי שתשמע דבריהם. So as long as you don't hear all their stuff, and even you're beginning to hear each party, ואי אתה יודע להיכן הדין נוטה, and you're not yet sure which party is right, then אתה רשאי לומר להם, איני נזקק לכם. So you allow in a way to say to them, you know what, I will not submit to your request to judge you. So in a way, the judge may refuse the case out of fear that perhaps the strong and the contentious one will be found liable, and it will turn out that the strong one will pursue the judge with intent to harm him. נתחייב חזק ונמצא חזק, שמא נתחייב חזק ונמצא חזק רודפו. משתשמע דבריהם ואתה יודע להיכן הדין נוטה. The moment that you hear the whole court hearing session, you hear each party, and you know already to which direction it's going to be, אי אתה יכול לומר להם, איני נזכר לכם. So then, by Jewish law, you cannot tell them, okay, I'm not going to deal with this case anymore. שנאמר, because the Torah said clearly in the book of Deuteronomy, we're just about to read this Torah portion of Dvarim for this week, the Torah said, you shall not be afraid before any man, לא תגור מפני איש. So the idea is that you have to be very clear and strong that the Mefarshim said it's not talking about the city rabbi, they talk about local judge. So local judge, it's different, because if the city rabbi will be afraid, then all the thieves and all the unscrupulous people will have a party. So obviously the idea of you should not have a fear, it means you're appointed for a job, you have to do your job, and you should trust the Lord that it will be fine. Don't intimidate by their words. רבי יהושע בן קורחה אומר לתלמיד שיושב לפני רבו וראה זכות לעני וחובה להשאיר מנין שלא ישתוק. You have disciples that have a tremendous respect to his teacher, but while he hears each litigant, he feels that he should interfere and he should say something to his teacher, especially when it's come to someone who is very well-to-do and the other one is indigent. So how do you know that he should not keep quiet, who should not be silent? So they said, because sometimes people show tremendous respect to the wealth of a person and even he's wrong. שנאמר לו תגור מפני איש, because the Torah said you should not intimidate by anyone. רבי חנין אומר, אל תכניס דבריך מפני איש. Rabbi Chanin said, not only that, but he says, if you examine the pasuk, the verse, do not suppress your statement before any man. So it means you don't even display equanimity and be an acquiesce over something you know it's wrong. So there is a very important rabbi that wrote a book called Shvut Yaakov. Shvut Yaakov said that all of this ruling applies to a judge that needs to have a monetary law, monetary disputation, so he should not be in a way at the state of trepidation or fear from any party that intimidate him. But he said if it's dinei nefashot, if someone is really going to harm the person's life or his family or is threatening in that level, so he said then he is allowed to back out and said I don't want to deal with this case. Others disagree with the Shvut Yaakov, and others said the moment you are appointed as a dayan, as a judge, then you should not be afraid even if people threatening your life. ויהיו עדים יודעים את מי הם מעידים ולפני מי הם מעידים ומי עתיד להיפרע מהם. This is a strong statement. They said that the witnesses should know about whom they are testifying and before whom they are testifying and who will ultimately exact payment from them. Meaning obviously that it's about God, about the Creator. And they bring an important sentence because the Torah said in Deuteronomy chapter 19, then both the man between whom the controversy is shall stand before the Lord. ועמדו, שנאמר ועמדו שני אנשים אשר להם הריב. So it means they should understand that they have God involved here, which is it's a dangerous game in a simple language. ויהיו הדיינים יודעים את מי הם דנים. The judges should have fear of the Lord when they rules. ולפני מי הם דנים ומי עתיד להיפרע מהם. If they do wrong, if they rule wrongs, they are liable before the Lord. שנאמר, they said in the book of Tehillim, chapter 82, Elohim nitzav ba'adat el. The Almighty, in our anthropomorphic language, God, stands in the congregation of God. So it means that the divine providence dwell among the judges, and he is there to see what's going on. V'chen b'Yehoshaphat, that's the King Jehoshaphat, that they said in the book of Chronicles, chapter 19, that when he appointed judges and he commended them how and what they should behave, הוא אומר, ויאמר אל השופטים, ראו מה אתם עושים, כי לא לאדם תשפטו, כי אם להשם. He said he ruled like the court that he appointed, and he said to them, the judges, consider what you do, for you judge not for men, but for the Lord. So obviously, Shema Yomar Dayan. So maybe the judge will say, if it's such a strong fear and judgment and straight, Mali Batzaraze, why do I need this aggravation? Why do I need this fear and sorrow? Why do I need the suffering? Why should I engage in such a burdensome and difficult task? Talmud lomar v'imachem bidvar hamishpat. Ein lo ladayan ela ma she'einav ro'ot. They said, he is with in giving a judgment, and a judge has only what his eyes sees, which means you're not expected a judge to rule above kind of clairvoyant knowledge. He has enjoyed render the best judgment possible based on the information he has available at that moment. He is not accountable for anything else. So the rabbis elaborate on that and say that the judge that erroneously judged wrong, in a way he imposed upon God to change the whole structure of the world, because in a way we believe in a God of justice, and then the person who takes something, money or possession from someone does not belong to him, will eventually, like in other religions they call it karma, that what goes around comes around. So eventually God is going to do something. So in a way it's kind of you imposing upon God to do something out of ordinary because you rule the way you rule. The Maharsha elaborates and he says the judge should do for the sake of heaven, l'shem shamayim, and God will help. It's a famous story about Rabbi Landau. Rabbi Landau is the rabbi in Prague in old day Czechoslovakia, who wrote the responsa called Noda Bihuda. So when he was appointed as rabbi, it was a big controversy. It was a controversy of Rabbi Yaakov Emdin. It was a controversy of other rabbis. So they fake a court case, in a way, from the historic perspective, just to try to put him down. So they put a group of scholars in each party, and they present to him a court case. And he was listening, and he said to one party, you are right, and he said the other party, you are right, and one party was right, and the other party is right. So then he stopped the session, and suddenly he says, is this a real case? So one of them said, why it's important if it's a real case? He says, because all my years' experiences in rabbinate and a court, I know that I always have special divine assistants, siyata dishmaya, that help me rule in a certain way. And now it's the first time I noticed that I have total understanding in each party, which again shows you the importance of belief that if you do the right thing, there is a divine providence involved with this. Hey, what exactly the final verdict, the circumstances of a verdict, which is what is the formal action that signifies the conclusion of the case. So he said basically, you said to each party, you Mr. So-and-so, you are liable, the other one, you Mr. So-and-so, you are exempt. אמר רב הלכה כרבי יהושע בן קורחה, Rabbi Yoshua ben Kocha said that it's mitzvah to try to mediate. So the Gemara said, Eini, is that true? Ravuna Talmidei de Rav Hava. Ravuna was the disciple of Rav. V'chiyava atu lekamei de Rav Huna, amar lu idina beitu ipshara beitu. So when they come the court before him, he always said, do you want just a strict judgment or do you want a compromise? So what you see here evidently is Rav's students, Rav Huna did not hold that it's a mitzvah to specifically arrange a compromise. So they said, my mitzvah nami de kamar Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha. What does Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha mean that he says that it's really a mitzvah? Page 7, mitzvah lemeimralu idina beitu ipshara beitu. So in a way he said it's a mitzvah to say to them, what exactly you are looking for? You're looking for judgment or you want a compromise? Hainu Tanakama. So what's the difference between the first view and this one? Ikabenayu mitzvah, meaning it is a real mitzvah, try to compromise between party, or it's kind of optional. Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha savar mitzvah, Tanakama savar reshut. Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha said it's a mitzvah to pursue compromise. Rabbi Yoshua ben Tanakama hold, no, it's not a mitzvah, it's optional. Soon we're going to analyze all the four opinions. So said Hanu Rabbi Shimon ben Nasya, ikabnahu mishdishma divrem v'tayda lechan adinotei yadar Hashem amar tzu v'tzu. So let's analyze all the four views we learned so far. Number one, Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha. Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha said it's real commanded. It's a mitzvah to go and try to mediate, try to compromise. Meaning you have the kind of mitzvah or almost obligation to ask the party before you start the court session, listen guys, are you willing out of your free will to go and find a mediator and try to compromise between you? That's his view. The second view is Tanakama, is the first Tana, that said that it's an optional, meaning that they can ask, but the moment they hear each party and they already have a feeling which direction the verdict is going to be, then it's prohibited to propose with mediation. Third opinion is Rabbi Shimon ben Asiyah, that said that it's an optional to go for mediation. However, if they know very clearly the direction, it's very similar view. So he said you cannot even propose that. And then Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Yosef Beglili, he said that don't even propose mediation. They come for judgment, they want to have a court session, they want to have a final verdict, don't even bother to propose mediation. Anyway, it's just as a side note, is a kind of contradiction with Shulchan Aruch, with the code. Because the code tells us that in the chapter 12, that if one party agreed to mediate, and it's not that he agreed to mediate because he believed that the other party has right, but just because he doesn't have a qualified witnesses, he doesn't have a clear evidence, he doesn't think that they reach the court and everything else. So therefore, only by force of circumstance, he is going for mediation, and he knew that if he pursue it, he may lose half. So the code said in chapter 12 that that's the reason for him to agree. However, the other part of the code on Siman Reish Ayin on chapter 270, he hold that basically the pshara, the mediation, is like iska, is like in a way a business deal. What happened in a business deal? The business deal is one wants something, the other one wants something else. You go and mediate and try to have common sense and make the deal happen. So that's basically, in a way, apparently the code contradicts itself between chapter 12 to chapter 270. They said two different things, because one is call it a mekach, like a business deal. Business deal is done deal, it's over. Versus you talk about mediation. Mediation meaning you said that in a way at this very moment you have lack of witnesses and lack of evidence, so you go for mediation. But you hold the right that if tomorrow you brought witnesses, for example from overseas, or other witnesses that you didn't aware they existed, or other proof of evidence, then you can come back to court and reopen the case. So that's basically apparently contradict each other. So there are two great commentators, great sages try to explain. One is Maharam Milublin and the other one is Ktsot HaChoshen. They try to explain that the two ruling of the court in two different chapters talk about two different scenarios, two different hypothetical case. The first one is, yes, he knew he's right, the litigant know that he's 100% right, he just doesn't have an evidence, so therefore the moment he brings a proof, everything is kind of expunged, is abrogated, it's changed, because now it's start from the beginning, since he knew the first moment that he's only going for compromise because of the lack of evidence. Versus the other one that you have, like Tohen Rabbanit, you have these rabbinic lawyers, all these people around the court system, and you hire that person and he advises you in a certain way, and he says, look, what you have a claim is very weak, and he convinces you to, either because he is overwhelmed with cases, or because other interests, whatever it is, he have deals with the other parties, or who knows what's involved with those people. So he basically push you to just compromise and finish the case, and you basically agree to compromise and mediate because he convinced you have a lack of evidence, etc. So therefore, it's a done deal. You cannot open the case again. The moment you sign up for mediation, it's over. Anyway, so that's in a way the Ktsot. Maharam Milublin explained that is not really a contradiction between the two rulings. So they said, Upliga, de Rabbi Tanchum bar Chanilai, אמר רבי תנחום בר חנילאי, לא נקרא מקרא זה אלא כנגד מעשה העגל שנאמר וירא אהרון ויבן מזבח לפניו. So we all know this painful story of the golden calf. The Jewish people thought that Moses is not going to come back after 40 days in heaven, and Aaron proposed the people to collect from all the people. They brought their wives, the women, jewelry, and it's created like the golden calf, and people worship it, etc. So the question is, why a great pious man like Aharon, the high priest, he built this type of altar, and he did it. מה ראה אהרון? אמר רבי בנימין בר יפת, אמר רבי אלעזר, ראה חור שזבוח לפניו. He saw Hur that they basically slaughtered him because he refused to create this idol worshipping this calf. אמר, לא שמענו לא אשת, עבדו לי כעבדו בחור. If I don't listen to people, they're going to kill me the same as they kill Hur. ומקיים בי, and it will be fulfillment. We're going to read it in a week from now, unfortunately, during Tisha B'Av, the book of Lamentations. Jeremiah wrote in Lamentation chapter 2, he said, Im yehareg b'mikdash Hashem kohen v'navi, even in the holy spot, the holy sacred place of the temple, can be killed a priest or prophet, because Aharon in a way has both. If they do such a horrible act of killing the leaders, then it will not have any tikkun, any way of them to repair, to rectify those mistakes. So it's better for them by force of circumstance to worship the golden calf, so if they repent later on, they potentially be accepted by God later on. One of the rabbis in the past generation, whose name is the Beit Shmuel, is the name of a book that he wrote. So he explained that obviously Aharon has kind of neshama klalit, has a soul that wants to do what is good for the people, not selfishly. So he figured out, I'll wait and I'll convince people, maybe the next day they change their mind. The Ktav Sofer elaborates, and he said that those Erev Rav, those people really not sincerely convert to Judaism, they just want to be out of Egypt, and they marry and they depart. They are the people who really wake up early in the morning to do that, to do idol worshipping and harm the people, versus others that just are a follower. But again, it's a lot of rabbinics writing what happened to her and why it happened and how. One of my books, Table Talk, I try to elaborate of Aharon, is like the notion that he was punished by taking away his two sons, maybe by Moses praying for him. They said in the book of Dvarim, "Va'etpalel be'ad Aaron ba'etei." That's the reason why he wasn't punished immediately. But there's a lot of explanation what exactly the stage of spirituality and why exactly Aharon did what he did. But anyway, the Hane Tana'ei, these two Tanaim, which is Tanakama and Rabbi Yoshua ben Kochad, do not hold the same as Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya, which means that according to them, that either it's an optional to do mediation or even it's a mitzvah. Poter ma'im reshit madon mai darshei bei. So how they explain this pasuk, they in Proverbs 17, the beginning of strife is as when one releases water. So they say כדרב המנונה, דאמר רב המנונה, אין תחילת דינו של אדם נידון אלא על דברי תורה. That's kind of frightening. He said, you know, when he's a heavenly tribunal, when you bury a person and he's going before the Almighty, the heavenly court, so the beginning of a person's judgment after he dies is he is judged only by concerning matter of Torah. שנאמר פוטר מים ראשית מדון. So in the word מים, which is water, it's kind of allegory to the Torah. So the Tosfot challenged that. Tosfot said that Gemara in Tractate Shabbat, page 31, said, שואלים לו נסעת ונתת באמונה. The first question they ask a person is, do you do business matter when it's come to money, when it's come to this type of negotiation, with trust? So it means that the whole idea of you study Torah will be a second, in a way, question. So how come you said here that that's the first one? So it's the two explanations. One, it's why he didn't either dedicate time to do it, or why he didn't do it in the scheduling, which means zman kavua, that you have, like we're doing at Daf Yomi, like you have a daily dedicate time to study Torah no matter what. It's a famous story about Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Mibarditchev, the Kedushat Levi, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak ben Sarah Shasha, Zchut Yagen Aleinu. He said that he saw a fellow that basically working hard all day, and he came to him and he said, you know, in the morning we said a blessing al divrei Torah, or la'asok b'divrei Torah. We say a blessing before we study Torah, but he says, the fellow asked him, I'm all day in my job, all day in my business, and then when I come back and I have little time to study, do I need to make that blessings again? So he explained so beautifully that if you do your job with honesty and you do the job in the most fair ways, in the modern days, it's like someone asked me if they're allowed to use the computer or use the phone while they're walking. So obviously you have to have it very clear, preferably written consent from your company owner or others who approve this type of thing, because again, the whole idea of being honest, it's not just a matter of dollar and cents sometimes. So the whole idea of study Torah, according to him, is if a person manage all of his actions while he is at his job that follow the spirit and the teaching of Torah, is in that sense also kovea itim laTorah. He doesn't need to repeat the blessings because he's occupied with the way of Torah. It's a famous story of one of my teachers, the Rabbi Kanievsky's father. When I was in my earliest years in yeshiva, later on in the army, I used to go to him all the time for blessings. So Rabbi Kanievsky, the discipler, one time the story goes that he went on the one of those taxi cab, and the guy complained that he used to go to synagogue and hear a lecture, but he says, I'm tired and I don't have the background, and I'm sitting there for an hour and I have no clue what they are saying and I don't understand it. So the disciple tried to tell him that your soul understand, and God not expect you to do what you more than you can, and by merely fact that you come there and make the effort and being there, that's already fulfilling in your best your capability. אמר רב הונא אל תגרע דמיה לצינורא דבדקה דמאיה כיוון דרווח ravach. So here they use kind of metaphor or allegory So Rav Huna said, this quarrel between people is comparable to a split in a house caused by the burst of water. So emptying into a field, once the split in the house widens, it widens even more and can no longer be repaired. So to save the field, the house must be repaired as soon as it's split. So the same is true with regard to a quarrel. It must be stopped as soon as it begins. Abaye kashisha amar damei leguda de gamla kevan dekam kam. It's like a board or in a wooden bridge. Once it stood and has been stabilized, it continued to stand and become even more rigid and stable. So now we're going to this well-known acronym when there are several teaching and you just want to make an abbreviation, so you go to mnemonic of a name. So Shammai Vashti Sheva Zmirot Hava Siman. First Meimra, the first statement. Hava Kamar Vazil Tuvia de Shama Vadish Khalfua Bishtei Mea. So he said that praiseworthy is a person who hears statement said against him and yet he remains silent. Even it's hurtful. Khalfua Bishtei de Mea. So by being quiet and just take it, it's like 100 misfortunes pass him as by a result, which means he is saved from much worse heavenly tribunal judgment. אמר לשמואל לרב יהודה, קרא כתיב, פותר מים ראשית מדון, ריש מעט דיני. The second one, הווה כאמר ואזיל, תרתי תלת גנבה לו מקטל. So it means if a person committed a sin once, twice, or even 3 times, he's not being punished. What does that mean? אמר לשמואל לרב יהודה, קרא כתיב, כה אמר השם על 3 פשעי ישראל וארבע לא השיבני. It reminds me a story about the righteous, pious in the past generation. They use all of a sudden to humiliate or insulted someone in public, and when they ask them why they're doing that, they say that they foresee that there is a strong judgment against the person in heaven, so by humiliating the person they basically save him from much serious heavenly judgment over wrong deeds. The third statement, Aouda Ava Kamar Vazil Shev Beirei Lishlona Vechada Leavid Bish. He said 7 pits are dug for the man of peace, and he escapes all of them, and 1 pit is dug for the evildoer, and he cannot escape it. אמר לשמואל לרב יהודה, קרא כתיב, כי שב יפול צדיק וקם. So they said it clear in the book of Proverbs, chapter 24, for a righteous man falls 7 times and rises up again, but the wicked shall fall at once. Fourth מימרה, אהודה אמר, דאבא, כאמר וזיל אזיל, להזיל מבדין השקל גלימה, להזמר זמר ולזיל בורחה. So if someone go to court and then unfortunately his clock was been taken from him in the court, he lost all of his money due to the ruling against him. So let him sing a song and go happily on the way. What does that mean? Although he lost the case, he has benefited from the justice being served. So אמר לי שמואל לרב יהודה, קרא כתיב וגם כל העם הזה על מקומו בשלום. The Torah said in the book of Exodus chapter 18, all these people shall go to their place in peace. If justice is served, all the litigants, not only those who emerge victorious, can live in peace. So obviously it's all depend upon how they take it. It's like if you look at the way the Chafetz Chaim said, they use the word beshalom. One should not greet a person when he leaves lech beshalom, but leshalom. And there are sources for that. So beshalom, the explanation is that it's like you don't need to come back to God. So obviously, as we said earlier, the judges does the way that they feel is right, and not always people feel that is the real justice, but as we said many times, the God in heaven is the God of justice, and he eventually come in to a rescue and do what is this challenge or obstacles. So when a person overcome obstacles, he basically reveal his potential and the greatness of his or her soul by being a big person and understand that there is a God who taking care eventually of what is right. The fifth memra, Haud Ava Kamar Bazil Hi Naima Vedi Kula Shafil. So here is a story, you see it in the many culture. I remember seeing it in the Philippines, in the Japan, also in the Middle East, that you see the basket that women are accustomed to carry on their heads. They call it because it's a dikula, it's come from the palm tree. But so אמר לי שמואל רב יהודה כרכתיב בעצלתיים עמך המקרה. So in the sense, if a person kind of live alone and not fix things, so eventually it starts leaking. It's a famous story about, again, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak ben Rabbi Sarah Shashet, Gdusha Levi. He went to a person, he tried to convince him to change his way. He used to work for the Paritz, for the non-Jewish big landlord. So each and every time the Gdushat Levi said to him, you know, when you make teshuvah, I'm jealous of you because all your sins turn to be a good deeds. So the guy said, wait another year, Rabbi, because you'll have more. So meaning he mocked him each time. One day he turned sick. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak came to him and visited him and says, no, what do you have to say now? So he said, in my boss' house, when there is a leak around, and it's a winter, I tell him, let's wait for the summer, with the hope that when it's the summertime, he will forget about it because it's a summer, and then he wait for the winter. And this way I postpone and postpone and postpone. And he said, that's me, that I feel it's too much for me to repent, so therefore I postponed it each time, but I deeply wants to do it. So Rabbi Levi Yitzchak said, look at this fellow, by merely fact that he wants to do teshuvah, even he is not doing it yet, it's already good path and merited. So this is unfortunately happened, that he said that here, I have a fellow that I rely on, he has lifted his fist and stood against me. Meaning you trusted the person, you think that that person will be on your side at the time of need, and all of a sudden he backstab you. Amar li Shmuel Rav Yehuda ktiv, that's what said in the book of Psalms, chapter 41, Gam ish lo mi asher batachti bo ochel achmi egil ala akev. So that's, it means that even the person that I trusted the most, unfortunately turned and backstab me. Haud kahava kamar va'azil ki rechamtina va'aziza aputia de safsira shchivan. He's talking about the early stage of their marriage. So he said, there was a certain man who was saying about his marriage as he walked, when our love was strong, we could have slept on a bed that was the width of a sword. He says, Hashta de lo azizan rechamtin puria barshitin garmi de lo sagilan. He says, now that our love is not strong, a bed of 60 cubits, obviously it's just a language of exaggeration, but the idea is not sufficient for us. So, אמר רב הונא כתיב מעיקר הכתיב ונועדתי לך שם דיברתי לך מעל הכבוד ותניא ארון 9 וכפורת טפח אחרי כאן 10 וכתיב הבית אשר בנה המלך שלמה להשם שימה מרוקו וסיר 20 רוחבו ו30 מקומתו ולבסוף כתיב כה אמר השם השמיים כיסי והארץ אדום רגלי איזה בית אשר תבנו לי. So you see here 4 different sides in the sense of the text. So how come? So it, in our simple language, is originally the love of God to our people was very strong, and then because of all kind of misbehavior in our language, God contracted, in a sense, eliminates some of his life, and he left his divine providence to dwell only in the holy Ark of Covenant, and then after they sin, he asked, where is the house that I can dwell? Because even the left over temple of 60 cubit, the divine providence can no longer dwell because it's destroyed. So as we said earlier, that the judge should not have a fear of anyone. So what does that mean? Mai mashma dehailo tagura lishna dechanushehu. So what is the expression in the Deuteronomy chapter 1, which we're going to read this week? From where may it be inferred that this expression, "we shall not be afraid of anyone," is a term for gathering in, so that the term may be interpreted to mean that the judge may not keep his ruling to himself. So again, in a sense, is the judge should do what is right. אמר רב נחמן אמר קרב ויין לא תשתה ולא תאגר. So again, it's a different using of words. רב אחא בר יעקב אמר מאחה תכין בקיץ לחמה אגרה בחציר מאכלה. Which means, again, it's different interchange of words to the word taguru. Third one, רב אחא בר רביקה אמר מאחה אוגר בקיץ בן משכיל, which is the wisest person, a wise son, gather or ger in the summer. That's Proverbs chapter 10. So here they bring three memot from Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani in behalf of Rabbi Yonatan, which is the judges should know before whom they are judging. אמת ממון יראה סימן. אמר רב שמואל בר נחמני אמר רבי יונתן, כל דיין שדן דין אמת לאמיתו, משרה שכינה בישראל, any judge that rule properly the way that it's the right way, he bring the divine providence among our people, שנאמר, the said in the book of Psalms chapter 82, אלוהים ניצב בלתל בקרב לא משפוט, which means why the God is in the congregation and dwell, because the judgment is correct. בכל דיין שאינו דן דין לאמיתו, גורם לשכינה שתסתלק מישראל, and any judge that not judge properly, he caused the divine providence to departure from our people, שנאמר, משוד עניים אין כתיב עניים מתי יקום, יאמר השם. So again, this is an expression that God will arise and live in our language, the people, as a result of oppression, as a result of the wrong judgment, which again, that's caused by wrong ruling, wrong judgment. ואמר רבי שמואל בר נחמני, אמר רבי יונתן, כל דיין שנוטל מזה ונותן לזה שלא כדין, הקדוש ברוך הוא נוטל ממנו. Any judge that basically rule against someone in lack of justice for all kind of reasons, God will cause that judge to lose his money and compensate the losing party from his own pocket. So in a sense, in our language, he is on liable for his wrong, vicious, horrible ruling. And they said, הקדוש ברוך הוא נוטל ממנו נפשו, that it can be even the level of God taking his life. שנאמר, they said in the book of Proverbs chapter 22, אל תגזל דל כי דלו ואל תדכא עני בשער כי השם מריב ריבם וקבע את קובעיהם נפש. God is warning the judges, and this is the word translation, rob not the weak, because he is weak, neither crush the poor in the gate, for the Almighty Lord will plead their cause and despoil of life to those who despoil them. So then said, the Creator cautions that he will take the life of one who steals from the poor at the gate, meaning in the courtroom, as the city gate was the traditional site of the community's court in those days. Obviously, there is a lot to say. I'll just give you a short story of the Chafetz Chaim. Someone, an arrogant, wealthy person, heard a lecture from the great rabbi of Radin, the Chafetz Chaim, who said that the Almighty controlled the world, and the Almighty make decision, mi yichyeh, mi yamut, who shall live, who shall die, who shall be rich, who shall be poor, and God can take and God can give away, etc. So that fellow came to him arrogantly and he says, Rabbi, I really don't believe in those stuffs you're teaching. I have an account in Antwerp, in Luxembourg, in Switzerland, in Sweden, in so many places in Europe. You're going to tell me that all my so many accounts, God is going just overnight to take all of that for me? So the Chafetz Chaim said yes. He says, how that can be? He says, it's very simple. God doesn't need to dwell and go to each account of you and empty it. He just can take you and that's it. Anyway, the third one, ואמר רבי שמואל בר נחמני אמר רבי יונתן, לעולם יראה דיין עצמו, כאילו חרב מונחת לו בין ירחותיו. This is a frightening statement. He says that a judge should always view himself as if a sword is placed between his thighs, so that if he leans on the right or the left, he will be injured. וגיהנום פתוחה לו מתחתיו, he should feel that like the hell, the Gehinnom is open up beneath him. So it means that he should, that's the code said in Chosh Mishpat chapter 8, that he should have a great feeling of awe and amazement and trepidation that the Almighty is there and watching carefully what's going on. Page 7b, Shene'emar, they said in the Song of Songs, chapter 3, that's something that we say before we go to sleep. Hine mitato sheli Shlomo, behold, this is a bed of King Solomon. 60 גיבורים סביב לה מגיבורי ישראל, כולם אחוזי חרב, מלומדי מלחמה, יש חרבו לרחום מפחד בלילות. So again, this is a language of euphemism. It's a language, you hear it in the book of Ezekiel and others. It's a anthropomorphic language. So they describe kind of the bed of a King Solomon, that it was 60 mighty men around it, and mighty men of Israel. They all handle the sword, and they are expert in war. Every man has his sword upon his thigh due to the dread in the might. So due to the dread in the might mean מפחדה של גיהינום שדומה ללילה, the fear of Gehinom that looks like a night. So that's the judges who are called mighty men of Israel. So they are preside in a temple, which is in a term the bed of God. So again, it's the idea that they should have some type of fear or trepidation before making a verdict, and listen carefully and make the proper honest decision. דרש רבי יהושע ותאמר רב נחמן בר יצחק, מה יכתיב בית דוד כה אמר השם, דינו לבוקר משפט בציל וגזול מיד עושק. They said in Jeremiah 21, house of David, so said the Lord, you shall execute justice in the morning and derive the spoil out of the hand of the oppressor. וכי בבוקר דנים וכל היום הם דנים, they only judge in the morning and not during the whole day. Obviously it's a different meaning, אלא אם ברור לך דבר כבוקר אמרו, ואם לאו אל תאמרו. If it's clear to you, lucid to you, like the day, say it, otherwise not stated. רבי חייא בר אבא אמר רבי יוחנן, אמור לך חוכמה אחותי את. King Solomon said in the book of Proverbs, chapter 7, you should say to the wisdom, you are my sister. So obviously it's not the sister, it means that something is clear to you, you not have questions. You say it like the rabbis explained, the prohibition against relation with the sister, it's clear and everyone in normal logical world understand it. So the same in kind of way they try to express how important to say things that come out clear, lucid, etc. אם ברור לך דבר כאחותך שאסורה לך אומרו ואם לאו אל תאמרו. If it's clear to you the same way as a matter of fact that your sister is forbidden to you, state it, otherwise not. אמר רבי יהושע בן לוי, 10 שיושיב בדין. So you have here 10 judges that are sitting in judgment. So a prisoner's collar, כולר תלוי בצוואר כולן. It's like referring to the responsibility for the consequences of an innocent verdict. So they said pshita, it's like all around their neck in a sense that God is watching them. So it's obvious that they join responsibility for the verdict. So they explain, לא צריך על התלמיד היושב לפני רבו. That's applied basically to the learning, the observation of a student, a disciple sitting in the front of his teacher in a court and notice that the teachers make a mistake. Although he's not formally part of the court because he's just a student of law, but he's nevertheless bear responsibility if he remains silent. So he needs to speak up and say what he has to say, and not intimidated by the fact that this one is his teacher. So when he ruled the court for judgment, he gathered and bring 10 rabbis from Rav's study hall. He said, so I do this only as a small part of my responsibility compared to a splinter from a beam will reach each of us. So the gather of number of judges, the less responsibility each one assume for the final verdict. So similarly, they said, Rav Ashi ki'ava atet reifta kamei. So when Rav Ashi have a question involved with making animal kosher, which was a question if it was treif or not, if it was an issue of physical deficiency in the animal, that's the result that makes it non-befitting for consumption, not kosher. So when he have this type of ruling, he gathered together all the butchers in his village, that they in a way are erudite when it's come to the law of a kashrut of animals, obviously not only for them to learn but also to be part of the making the proper justice decision. Amar, this is his statement that he will say to them, so he said, I do this so that only a small part of responsibility comparable to the splinter from a beam will reach each of us. So again, you want to show them the serious responsibility involved with that. Obviously, what we see today, we learn a lot of things. I just want to share with you some halachot. One is from the Rambam in Ilchot Sanhedrin, chapter 22. I'm reading from the Koran edition of my dear friends, God give him strength, Rab Steinsaltz. If two people come for a judgment, and one is flexible and agreeable, and the other is rigid and contentious. Do you know anybody like that? So they said, then before the judge hears their statements, or after he hears the statement but does not yet know where the judgment is leaning, it is permitted for him to say that he does not want to be involved in the case. You see in the code in Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat chapter 12, they say the same applies if both litigants are contentious. It appears that in a case of a regular and permanent communal judge, he may not decline to judge the dispute under any circumstance. We talk also difference when his students before his teacher. That's the Choshen Mishpat 9 and also Yoredeah chapter 242. He says if a student is sitting before his teacher while a case is being tried and he discerns a point of merit for one of the sides, he is required to come to the letter's defense. And if he's silent, he is in violation, which the Torah said in Exodus 23. They said that keep far from false matter. That's also Gemara in Shavuot chapter 31. The judges at the time of a court session, that's Choshen Mishpat chapter 8, during the court case, the judge are required to sit in awe and fear and wrap in an additional garment. Nowadays, it is not customary for a judge to wrap himself in a prayer shawl like in talis, but it is appropriate for him to wear dignified clothing such as that which one wears in a synagogue, the Shla said. He must sit with a sense of gravity in the honest that he is sitting in a judgment before the Almighty God. And obviously, the Rambam in Ilchot Sanhedrin chapter 23 said, a judge does not need to be concerned that he may not have uncovered all of the truth, for a judge is human, that which his eyes see. Wherever he is unsure, he should meticulously inquire into the matter until the truth become clear, because he can judge only the way his eyes sees. Now, obviously we have many views when it's come to compromise, but since we talk about judgment, that's important to know what the Yoredeah, the code, tells us in 246. Torah study is a mitzvah upon which all other mitzvot depend. Therefore, a person's ultimate judgment begins with the judgment of his Torah study, as we said, daily, before he is judged with regard to all other deeds. And as we mentioned Tosfot, there are few views how exactly it works. But I would like to conclude with the Rambam in Ilchot Sanhedrin chapter 23. He said that the judge must be in a state of awe and fear during the judgment, because it is as though they are sitting before the divine presence at that time. In addition, a judge who judges wrongly causes the divine presence to withdraw from Israel. Similarly, and you see it also in the Shulchan Aruch Choshen Mishpat chapter 8, they said if he seizes money wrongly, the Holy One, blesses he, exact punishment from the judge by taking his life. If he judge correctly, it is as though he has repaired the entire world, and he causes the divine presence to rest among Israel. So there are many lessons we learn today. Some of them are when a person just forgive and let go. In a sense, if a person said, if I forgive myself and others, even if they, in a way, hurt my feeling, hurt me, or I've done something wrong, I stop being angry and feel peaceful inside. And when I treat all people with real human dignity, I give them the respect I would like to receive. So that's basically called in our language the matter of tikkun olam, repairing the world and making our world a better place to live.